mischaracterizing
Very good.
what they're
Yeah.
doing. So it's like there's probably more.
Yeah, they're not
Think
mutually
about it.
exclusive, these
Right.
fallacies.
There's probably more. It's probably a collision of them, because the people who are doing this on purpose. Now, there are people who are not doing this on purpose, by the way. They're just sheep, and they just regurgitate things. But there are people who know exactly what they're doing, and it's power games, and they know that the words are their weapons.
Yeah,
and so
that's right.
they know how to clash fucking 16 fallacies into one bundle and hit you with it so hard you look like the biggest monster on earth.
Here's what's really funny about this, and kind of sad and a little bit tragic, is that many of the people who are involved in that side of the argument are actually super well-meaning people. Like if you are a person who is empathetic and you care about people who are disadvantaged, it's going to be very easy for you to fall prey to these types of ideologies, because they're basically capitalizing on your empathy. Now, when I say they, who am I talking about? I don't actually know. Okay, there are a lot of theories about how this type of thinking is being taught, or is being indoctrinated into kids in universities now. There's a lot of thought about how this is seeping into Silicon Valley, seeping into politics. Some people think that there is something behind it, that there are people behind it. I mean, if you listen to guys like Jordan Peterson, he has his theories about who the people are and what their intentions are.
The postmodernism, Marxism, the French intellectual stuff pushed over.
Right. But it's interesting how this is universally happening across university campuses. Like, to me, if universities were what they profess to be, you would see radically different ideologies across all of the universities. But you're starting to see more and more homogenous thought across more and more universities now. That, to me, indicates that there is probably some layer of orchestration behind all of this. Now, again, I can only speculate, and you start to sound like a conspiracy theorist, a crazy, person who's just like making things up, when you start going down those things. So we have to be very careful.
Yeah, you have to ask, but you have to ask the fucking questions.
Yeah. I mean, what can we know, what can't we know? Let's be honest about that. But at the same time, I think it's very healthy, it's very okay to question whether or not there's orchestration behind things, because it has happened in the past. It does exist. That's a very funny thing. By the way, the label conspiracy theory is a very interesting label, is it not? It means, if you look at the surface words, you're theorizing about a conspiracy. Now, do conspiracies ever happen in the world? Well, I would say anybody who has been in high school knows that conspiracies happen.
Absolutely.
Conspiracies happen in high school all the time, do they not? Right?
They happen everywhere. They happen at the workplace constantly.
They happen everywhere, right? So, I mean, is it strange to hypothesize that maybe on some governmental level, or maybe some power level, there are people who are conspiring for things to happen? Of course, that's not crazy. That's
even the word theory. That doesn't say that is a fact. Yet
no,
when somebody labels somebody a conspiracy theorist, they're ignoring the theorist part. And then they add the tinfoil hat on there just to make you look extra stupid.
That's right. And how did that term become pejorative to begin with? How was it that a rather innocuous sounding term? You're right. It's just a theory, right? I think theorizing about anything is perfectly healthy. Yeah. I think all topics of discussion should be okay, right? But there are some people who think, and I got to say, a lot of people I really love and respect are affected by this. But I have relatives, I have friends who are very high up in academia who they're like, you can't talk about that. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't talk about that?
That face is everything. They're fucking afraid.
They're afraid.
They're afraid.
They are afraid. Why are they afraid to talk about certain things? And you guys watching this, you tell me you're not afraid to say certain things on Facebook. Are you not?
Yeah, you can't say that you've been feeling like you need to walk on eggshells more. And there's some of you watching who are stomping on those fucking eggshells like crazy. You just don't give a fuck. And then
cheers to you.
Yeah. And there are those of you who are just praying that that you don't break any more eggshells because you don't know what to say. And that's most people. They feel they need to. I have a friend. And we were at dinner we're in Thailand now, but we were in, where the hell were we? Vancouver. And we were at dinner, and he said straight up at the table, I don't believe that dinosaurs existed. He's like, I can't find truth. He's like, but I never went to school. I never learned. He's like, I just can't see how they actually existed. It just doesn't seem right to me. And everyone...
you crazy, uneducated dum-dum.
Oh, dude, everyone at the table was just teasing him, and it's understandable at one level, but at another level, and I was like, well, I wanted to find out why he thought that. You take the guy seriously.
Yeah.
Like,
be respectful of the person's mind. You don't know what path that person walked to get to that point.
And you never know what they might say.
That's right.
And
maybe he has a valid argument.
He didn't, to me.
Yeah. Which isn't surprising to me. Right?
Because he's just like, I don't know, so therefore I'm going to err on the side of, he's like, I just don't see it. He's like, they make these things, there's no way they could know the color of their skin, and like, that's valid, but he's like, they never really found, they find 2 bones, and then they make a whole skeleton, and then they make the skin, and they have the hair, like, it's like they figured out the whole thing from a few bones. I get that stretch, but he's like, I really just don't know the answer. He's like, so I don't believe there is.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a leap there, but it was interesting to see everybody just tease him, and I'm like, well, Galileo was thrown in, didn't he die in jail, or he was thrown away for believing that the earth and everything went around the sun.
Yeah.
And so something is in our culture, and it's probably always been there, but now it's getting worse, where any idea that is not this narrative of fairness, equality, whatever you want to call it.
The Overton window is the concept.
If an idea doesn't fit that, you are shamed and mocked out of the conversation.
Saul Alinsky in Rules for Radicals, which is a very fascinating book to read, by the way. And it's funny, you bring it up in the mainstream parlance. They're like, you must be a crazy right-winger if you're talking about Rules for Radicals. Well, why is Rules for Radicals still one of the best-selling books out there? One of the best-selling political books. Somebody's taken it seriously. And it's a very brilliant book. As a guy who has studied asymmetric warfare, Eastern and Western, throughout most of his whole life, I have to respect the brilliance of Rules for Radicals as a handbook for asymmetric warfare to fight against a more powerful foe. And I don't like the way it's being leveraged right now, but you have to respect the tactics. They are very brilliant. One of the things that Alinsky says in Rules for Radicals is the notion that ridicule is mankind's most powerful weapon. Now think about this, right? Notice how in that group that you were hanging out with, people were ridiculing that guy for questioning something. To me, anybody who has a question or a hypothesis, I respect that guy 100 times more, even if he's wrong, than a guy who's parroting the thing that's right? Because he's been taught that that's the correct view of the world.
Or the guy who stays completely quiet.
Right, because he's afraid.
Yeah.
He's afraid. Well, and what is he afraid of? He's afraid of ridicule.
Yeah.
He's afraid of ridicule.
That's right.
It's a very fascinating thing.
It's the same thing why people are afraid of public speaking. They're afraid of ridicule.
That's right.
And
so the biggest fear, according to some, who knows if that's true, but according to some statistics, that's more feared than death.
Yeah, and that's
so they say.
And every time I say that, I feel like I'm just parroting because I don't know if that's true at all.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen the actual study.
No.
Right.
So I really don't even want to parrot that anymore. But it's like.
Well, that's why I say so they say.
But here's what's interesting. Public speaking or whatever, if you look at social media, in essence, you're public speaking anytime you make a status, anytime you do a video.
That's right.
And so we have a whole world that's connected by the internet, and everybody is public, and everybody is immediately into the public square. That ridicule is, no wonder we feel anxiety, because that ridicule can happen at any moment, whereas before it never had to happen all the time. Now, no matter what you do, it's open for ridicule by the whole world.
Yeah, what's safe now? Posting videos of your fucking coconut macaroon? Is that what's safe now? Is that what's okay? Is that the only thing you can do without being afraid of being judged or labeled?